Hi there, my name's Bob Notice, and I'm talking to you from across the pond on this very special occasion of the final ever episode of Indietronica, your United Kingdom's most popular and successful music radio program. Today we're going to be talking about the amazing history of this fantastic radio show and talking to some very interesting people from the past, present, and future of Indietronica. So come with me as we go beneath the music. Of course, everybody now knows that Indietronica began broadcasting in 1984. But what some people don't realize is that actually the original version of the show began in France, Europe. I spoke to famous French music journalist Serge Zerg about this.
Oui, this is true, of course. The original radio program was called Le Nouvel Audiogramme dans les Indietriques, and it was an amazing radio show that we had here in Paris, and it was very popular for its many exciting and erotic segments to this show, such as La Sac Quizmont and the famous catchphrase Qui est vos influences? And that it was also famous, of course, because it did not have a human DJ. Instead, it was a trained orangutan who was very popular with the French people. And this popularity caused it to be picked up by your British press and stolen, much like your Blackpool Tower was stolen from us too.
The rights to the show were bought by Jock McTavish, a famous Scottish businessman who had heard the show on a holiday in Provence. He decided that he could bring the show and its success to Britain and to set up in the northwest of England. Due to the success at the time in the early 80s of such seminal bands as Joy Division, New Order, and of course the Macleods. Due to tax reasons, he decided to base it in Preston, though Mr. McTavish would claim that this choice was due to his enormous tour bus, which required the largest bus station possible in the area. Music journalist Stuart McConey has been writing a book about the early days of Indietronica.
Hello, it's me, Stuart McConey. In the early days of Indietronica, they realized the ape format of the French show wouldn't work, so they decided to go for a more traditional human DJ. And Mr. McTavish decided in the end upon local mysterious weapons designer Glenn Allen, who became the voice of Indietronica.
The show was not an immediate success, but was an underground hit. DJ Glenn Allen was especially noted for embracing modern technology in order to communicate with his audience. In the 80s, he used CB radio to talk to listeners, and his handle, Nirvana, on the CB radio became famous across the world, inspiring a certain band in Seattle to name themselves after him. As the 80s turned into the 90s, the show began to build up steam and soon was listened to across the country by eager audience members. It's during this period that the show is best remembered for introducing some of Northern England's most famous bands, such as Glance, Nom Nom, Roctimus Pride, Jemima and the Puddle Ducks, the KFC, and Northern Uproar. Kevin Featherclone, singer of the KFC, remembers what it was like back in those days.
Yeah, we were on the show. It was really good.
The show became synonymous with the indie Britpop music of the 1990s and was considered part of Cool Britannia. Glenn Allen was soon able to get some of the most famous people from around the country and indeed the world onto his show for his amazing interviews. Radio 9 DJ Joe Wiley remembers.
Yeah, remember what an inspiration Glenn Allen's show was with his amazing interview techniques. He could put his guests at ease and really get them to talk about what their interests were, their influences, what they thought was going to happen to their band in the future, stuff like that. He was sort of like Parkinson, but, northern.
As the 90s drew to a close and Britpop's popularity waned, Jock McTavish decided that something new needed to happen in the show in order to keep up the audience's interest. So in a controversial move, he added a sidekick to the mix, a young lad called Liam Astley.
Hello, it's me, Stuart McConey again. The story goes that Jock McTavish first met Liam Astley, an orphan from the Big Smoke down south, when he was attacking the bonnet of his enormous coach, and at first he was going to have him arrested, but he saw something special in the boy, so instead he just had him beaten and then offered him a job.
Liam was popular with some listeners, introducing exciting new features such as Destroyer Son of the Week and Why Did You Stop Playing My Song Before It Had Finished? However, he was a divisive figure, and eventually the management decided to get rid of him and replace him with a second question bag. It was the end of an era, but Indietronica continued to go from strength to strength. A lot of people expected Glenn Allen to move on into other forms of media, perhaps start a movie career, but he seemed content to stay hidden behind the microphone in the Preston FM studio. In fact, recent stories have started to cast peculiar doubts upon the identity of Mr. Allen himself. We've been speaking to a former guest of the show who wishes to remain anonymous and so will be using the name of Richard Billsborough. He told us about what happened on the fateful night he went to appear on the show.
It's been 7 years since I last appeared on the Indietronica show. This is because the last time I appeared on it, I was shown into the studio by a man with a large man, a very tall man wearing a black cape. He appeared to be carrying some sort of knife, butcher's knife, maybe a cleaver. I wasn't really trying to raise it in conversation, but I was shown into the studio and there were two crash test dummies sat in the seats in the studio with a dictaphone sort of gaffer taped really to the throat of the dummy, just sat there, and the man came in with a cleaver. It was a cleaver, I think it was a cleaver. He came in, sat me down, asked me to put a blindfold on, and then I then heard movement. I'm not sure if it was the man was doing something to maybe like setting off cues or something for the radio show, or maybe the crash test dummies were then replaced by Glenn and Liam. I'm not sure. I was blindfolded out about 5 minutes after I'd been asked to sit down. Someone then took my arms and bound me to the chair by the wrist, and just put some water into my mouth and told me it was time for me to make my appearance, which I did. But then I was then, after the program had ended, I was then left there for 3 hours in an increasingly, and the studio was quite a small room, and it became increasingly hot. I started to become worried I'd pass out, but then I was lifted in the chair and all, just lifted as one unit, and just left outside on the street. It was it's really rather distressing. I mean, I've spoken to the authorities about it, but they just kind of said there was nothing they could do.
So with rumors swirling around the internet, perhaps we'll never know what really goes on in those mysterious Preston FM studios, especially with the show announcing that it will now be ending in its 27th year of production. All we can say is that it's been an amazing run, and we wish them all the best with whatever they choose to do in the future with their astounding talents. Perhaps the best thing to do is to end with a few words from the founder of the show, Mr. Jock McTavish. These accents are basically f***ing racist. Thanks a lot, Jock, and thanks a lot to Glenn Allen and Indietronica for a wonderful 27 years. And this was Beneath the Music.